The iec104 file transfer functionality is primarily used for retrieving disturbance data from protection equipment. It can also be used to transfer a recorded sequence of events or values. But in this demo, I'm going to transfer something completely different. I'm using the FreyrSCADA iec104 client and server simulator. Let's configure this one. So we're going to do add server. By default, it's going to use the localhost interface, the 127.0.0.1 IP address on port 2404, which is the default port for iec104 protocol. The only thing I'm going to change here is this enable file transfer. So I'm going to set this one to true. Select a directory for the server, which will be the C:104 server. Alright, and then we need to have a configuration, so let's just do very simple configuration. Single point, like this. So let's load that configuration. And we can now start the server. So it's now listening on TCP port 2404. So let's go to the client. Same thing here, add client. It's going to connect to localhost 2404. We're going to enable file transfer on the client as well. And we're going to set this one to a different directory, C:104 client. Alright, so we're now done. So we could now click this start communication. But before I do that, I want to set up a sniffer because I want to capture this 104 traffic. When I use NetworkMiner, I normally capture with something else and then load the PCAP file into NetworkMiner. But right now, we're actually going to do a live capture with NetworkMiner. To do that, I need to start NetworkMiner as administrator. Normally, you also need to add a firewall rule for incoming packets to allow them to be accessed by NetworkMiner as well. But when you capture on the localhost interface, 127.0.1, you don't need to have a firewall rule like that. So if I would like to capture on this one interface, I would need to add a firewall rule, but not for this 127.0.1 interface. So let's select that one and click start. So we're now listening. So let's go to the parameters tab and see if we can see any iec104 packets being decoded. So let's go to the client and click start communication. The first thing that happens now is the client connects to the localhost on port 2404, station address or common address 1, and it's retrieving a variable on object address 1, and the value of that variable is 0 according to this client. Let's see if NetworkMiner picks that up as well. So we have, that's this one. So COA is the station address and IOA is the object address. So object address 1, the value is not 0, it's actually off. So NetworkMiner parses this and shows the value as off rather than just a 0. Alright, so let's do a file transfer, but first we need to have something to transfer. So on the desktop here I have 2 images. So we're going to place one of the images in the server directory. Like this, and do copy. But in iec104 protocol, when you transfer a file, it doesn't really have a file name. It actually has to be a number. So I need to translate this one into a number. So let's just call it 123 like this. Yes, I want to change it. So the file name in the server is now just called 123. Alright, so let's go to the client and say, I want to do something called file read from server. So the station address is still 1. In the simulator, it doesn't really matter which object address you use, so let's just stick with 0. And the file name, or file number in this case, is 123. And click file read. Hopefully the file should start reading now. If we go to NetworkMiner, we can see that yes, there's a lot of traffic coming in here. It says file 123, and then it divides the file into multiple chunks or small sections, and all of those chunks are downloaded, and here it says download OK. And we can see in the images tab we now have an image here, so I can do open file. The reason it's called 1_0 0_123 is because 1 was the station address, 0 was the object address, and then 123 was the file name or file number. Let's see if we can upload a file from the client to the server instead. So let's close this one. So let's move into the client directory. So the client now has this 123 file because we downloaded it from the server to the client. So let's take this one instead and do copy here. Let's name this something different. Let's do it like 6789. Go back to the client and say we want to send a file. File send to server. Let's see here. The file is called 6789. And let's see which object address we want to send it to. So let's say we want to send it to object address 6543. Okay, send to server. Go back to NetworkMiner. Hopefully we should see parameters going on here. Yes, so it's doing station address 1, object address 6543, and it's sending a file called 6789. And it's actually done now. So we now have this second file that's been transferred in the other directory from client to server. We can see all of these parts on the Files tab as well, where you can see each of the part and then the full image. The reason NetworkMiner names it as a JPEG, if I got a filter like this, is because NetworkMiner automatically detects that this is a JPEG image because it reads the file header of the data and sees this header and says that, yeah, this looks like a JPEG header. That's why it says file type : JPEG here. So it changes the file name automatically to .jpeg. Alright, so I hope this feature will come in handy if you one day need to extract a file transfer from the iec104 protocol.